Facing cancer doesn't mean you are now only the cancer patient. So often we hear those with cancer share the need to feel seen, to feel understood, and not feel alone. So whether you are facing cancer yourself or supporting someone who is, join us. My name is Susan Larkin. We are Facing Cancer Together. Everyone's cancer experience is unique, whether in treatment or even after. Denise shares her challenges following treatment, and Michael, he's looking back years after treatment and learning to trust his body again. But first, Michelle Sylvain shares with us the emotional ups and downs she's going through right now, in the middle of her treatment. And now let's hear from Michelle Sylvain.
Back at the end of last year, when I was just doing a quick check of myself, that I necessarily couldn't feel a lump, but I would do a side profile and I would see a dimple in my right breast. So I would raise my arm up, and when I raised my right arm up above my head, the right profile of that breast did not match the left. So I booked a checkup with my doctor, was examined, and then they suggested that I go for an ultrasound. So I had to wait about a month for an ultrasound. And then at the end of January, I went in for the ultrasound, not thinking much of anything. It was at noon on a Friday. And then came home and was working from home. And by 4:00 that night, I got a phone call from my doctor's office saying that the results were sent over urgently and that there was something picked up in my right breast as well as my lymph nodes in the right arm, and that it's probably cancerous if it's in the lymph nodes. My world fell apart, came as an utter and complete shock. It's not something that runs in my family, not something that many people I know have had experience with, except for one of my very best friends. Mm-hmm. So from there, I went in for a biopsy in early February. And then my doctor called me back after that to say, yes, it's confirmed that it is breast cancer and that the biopsy is being sent off to a lab to determine what type of cancer it is at that point. That is the absolute worst part of all of this, is right at the beginning, because you are getting no good news. There is nothing good coming to you. You are scared. You are terrified. You don't know how bad this is. You don't know if you're going to live, if you're going to die, if it's treatable, if it's not. You don't know anything. And cancer is the scariest word that anyone can hear. The results came back that it was hormone positive cancer. So tested positive for estrogen, progesterone. And I was HER2 negative, which is a good thing because HER2 positive people have a different type of treatment because it's just a different type of cancer altogether. And the thing that bothered me with that is that I've always had hormone problems. And I had been diagnosed with PCOS prior to this, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is hormone related. Mm-hmm. So my family doctor, my gynecologist, they were all aware of a lot of hormone related issues, but nobody has ever flagged that, hey, since you have hormone issues, maybe we should just check to see if breast cancer is something that might be, affecting you in any way. And then let's see. So yes, I went in to see the surgeon first, and also a very scary appointment. And everything rolls in so quick. Like nothing takes time. Everything happens so quickly. And you don't have time to process anything. It's like a roller coaster and you hang on for dear life. So, I met my surgeon on a Thursday. And in that meeting, she said it looks like it's stage 2. It could possibly be stage 3. We don't know if it's anywhere else in your body. We need to do a PET scan. We need to do an MRI. We need to see where it is, how advanced it is. I left there in tears, right? Yeah. And then that day I was so scared. I wanted to go home to see my parents in Cambridge. So me and my husband picked up, drove to Cambridge from Hamilton, not that far, but there was a snowstorm coming and I anticipated that I would just be there for the weekend. Well, that same afternoon, I get a phone call from the surgeon's office saying there is an oncologist that is willing to take you on. We only have one oncologist right now who's willing to take on more patients, and he's going to see you tomorrow. And so I drove back from Cambridge because I needed to see an oncologist, and it would be at least a month before someone else could see me. And that's time that we can't waste in this situation. He gave me the whole rundown, and there were tears, and it was a long appointment, and then it was signing a form, and I start chemo on Monday. And it's go, go, go. You don't have any time to process anything. You still don't know how bad things are. And you have access to this thing called My Chart, which is an app where you can see all the doctor's notes, all your appointments, everything rolling in. So, and then I started chemo on the Monday. There were various appointments that same week. And then I had a PET scan on the Thursday of that same week to determine whether this was anywhere else in my body, which was the scariest thing because it would change everything if it had spread. Lucky for me, it did not. It was contained to my right breast and the 5 lymph nodes in my right arm. So from there, he could determine that I was stage 2, thankfully, and very treatable. And at that point, I started to feel a little more secure in this whole process that, okay, I have some answers. I know what's happening. This is treatable. You know, it's going to be a long road, but it's going to be okay. So, oh yeah. And I should mention that I started chemo on my 39th birthday. So that was a nice little birthday treat for myself. Yeah. The nurses were lovely though. And, you know, they have to verify who you are each time you go in for chemo, and 2 nurses verify who you are, right? So every time it's what's your name? What's your date of birth? So at my first chemo treatment, I'd say, I'm Michelle. This is my date of birth, February 27th. And they go, oh no, I'm so sorry. Then the second nurse would come in and verify my date of birth. Oh no, I'm so sorry. But, it was quite something. And I met some wonderful people that very first day at chemotherapy that I still talk to today that helped me tremendously because I was terrified of what I was going into. Since then, I had to do 8 chemo treatments. And I did have my last chemo treatment on June 5th, which was great. So I'm done that stage of things. And I rang that victory bell and it felt amazing. Felt great to do that. And, the first day I remember at chemotherapy, doctor comes up to you to verify your details, and someone rang the victory bell while we were having that conversation, and everyone stops and claps. Everyone in the entire floor. It's beautiful. And I got a little teary eyed about it. And he looked at me and he said, don't worry, you're going to be there too. And at that point I couldn't fathom being there. But I did. And I made it through. And you're a lot stronger than you think you are. Mm-hmm. So this is where I'm at right now. Mm-hmm. And I just recently met with my surgeon for the next phase of this, which is my double mastectomy surgery. And this is the part now that I was actually struggling with this week, is that, you know, you get over that one hill of chemotherapy, which feels impossible. And now, you know, you feel like you're on top of the world. And now you feel like you've been pushed right back down to the bottom again because this surgery is a whole other experience. And I can't have reconstruction until after I'm done radiation. So I have about a month of radiation after I'm done recovering from surgery, which is about 6 weeks. Radiation changes the way your skin moves, stretches, all of that. It just changes the skin altogether. So in most cases with people who have radiation, it'll take about a year or so, like maybe 10 to 12 months before you can do the reconstruction. And that alone mentally is another hump for me to try to get over, because you have to kind of come to terms with the fact that you're going to look differently. And you won't have to keep that forever if you don't want to, because many women don't get reconstruction. But for me personally, that's something that I just have to wrap my mind around for a little while. And there's also some amazing new things that they're doing now that my surgeon also told me about, such as 3D nipple tattoos, which are amazing because when they do this surgery, you no longer have a nipple. That's removed. So I know it may not be something that is important to everybody, but my goal coming out of this is to feel as much like myself that I can, and as much of myself that I was before this took over. This woman who works at Women's College Hospital had it done, and she said it was wonderful and it did wonders for her self-esteem. Because this is the other side of cancer, is especially when you're a female, it changes your appearance, right? I lost my hair. I had beautiful long blonde hair that I loved. And I almost used it as an identifier for myself. And that's gone. And that was extremely hard. My husband shaved it in the shower for me. And it was just a very traumatic moment. But I got over that and, bought every kind of bandana and head turban that I could find to make myself feel good. And I'm thinking that will probably be the same with surgery. It'll be weird at first, but hopefully, I just kind of power through, and hearing other women's stories is extremely helpful to me. So I have that coming up, and then we go from there.
Thank you for that. And now let's hear from Denise Dmitruk.
My name is Denise Dmitruk. I live in Aberdeen, Saskatchewan, which is a small community of about 700 people just north of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. My initial diagnosis goes back to early 2022. I felt a tumor or a mass in 2021, had surgery in 2022. It started in my parotid gland. So I had a parotid gland tumor and removal. And then it started to infiltrate the lymph nodes, which ended up being a marginal B-cell lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's.
Thank you. Denise, I know the team shared with me you're a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got that diagnosis, what were your thoughts, like with that knowledge, with that healthcare experience?
Initially a person thinks, what? Because as a nurse, I have the background knowledge knowing that it's not that I'm immune to it. It's not that there's some umbrella that will protect me from not getting it. But of course, your mind just goes to, oh, okay. I was going to say a different word, but I'll be politically correct here. I think my nursing background helped me in one way, because when I initially felt that tumor, and then when I felt it get larger, I knew I had to go and get it looked at. Like there was just no ifs, ands, or buts. And a lot of times people are scared of the answer because you don't know, like you know that that's not something that should be there. And they don't want to get it checked out too quickly because they don't want to know something is wrong. I was like, nope, get this thing looked at. And then as soon as we had the initial ultrasound, the bad thing about it is, being a nurse, I can kind of read the diagnostics and interpret them. I'm not a physician, but I can interpret them. So I already knew that there was something cancer-like there. So when I met with my initial surgeon, it was biopsy or removal. I said straight to removal. There's no point. It's gotten larger and let's just do this. But you think that like I'm a relatively healthy person. Yes, I have Crohn's disease and fibromyalgia. I have other comorbidities, but I lead a healthy life. Exercise, I eat well, I don't do drugs, I don't drink very often, maybe the odd glass of wine, I don't smoke. Like, why me? So it was kind of like, I've looked after patients. I've had to look after end-of-life patients with cancer, young and old. Now I'm in that boat. And it just kind of, it stops your world, because even with the background knowledge that I have, when you meet the doctors and they go through everything and they're telling it all, the only thing you get in your head is, I have cancer. You don't get how bad it is, what type it is, everything like that. That's why I had to have my partner with me. I'm like, did you get half that? Because I got cancer. That's what I got. So it was kind of shocking a little bit too, because you go to worst case scenario being in healthcare, because you've seen the worst case, you've seen good cases, but your mind just directs you straight to those bad times.
And what about, I'm sure many times you've talked to your patients and said, oh, you're going to feel X, you're going to feel Y. That's normal. This is to be expected. But now you're the one hearing that and going through that. How did that feel?
And kind of surreal, actually, because like when I have a patient who has it, you know that there's a diagnosis, there's a prognosis, that some will beat it, and unfortunately some will not beat it. That's just the way that it is. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and there was this one doctor who said, anyone who gets cancer lost the cancer Russian roulette. You didn't win that one. So in my head, I was like, okay, I lost that cancer Russian roulette game. Okay. But now I have to be the one getting through this. And luckily, and I don't like when people say, oh, you got the good cancer, because to me, there's no good cancer. I don't care what anyone says. There's no good cancer. So when you have my physicians, like my team is great. I have amazing doctors, nurses, social work. You have everybody else who's on your team and all that. But it's like, well, you have a low grade lymphoma, one that you have to live with. Like you'll always have this. You can't get rid of it. So in your head, you're like, great. Now what? You're constantly looking behind your back. Like, is that person behind me at all times? Like it just sends you in a loop where you're like, now what? And then everything that happens, you have a new symptom. Is it spreading? Is it this? Like, in your head that it could be, but it most likely is not. In my case, it actually was. The surgery didn't get all the tumor, and it did advance, never below my collarbone. Hence why I needed radiation therapy after. Like it did. So, and now every repeat scan, because I have one coming up in a couple of weeks, you're like, what is that going to tell me? Like, yes, I'm optimistic. Yep, we got that sucker. It's gone. But what if it's not? So that plays around in your head over and over again, unfortunately.
As you were talking there, I thought, you're used to being a caregiver. You're a caregiver for your job. I get the sense you're probably a caregiver with your family and your friends. But now you were the one being taken care of. How did you handle that switch?
It was a real tough pill to swallow. And I almost felt like I was a burden on my partner, because he was fantastic. He would do everything for me. Like, he was great. And when he was working and I was at home recovering, he would check in with me so often just to make sure I was good. And we also have a bearded dragon. So the bearded dragon kind of helped me recover too. I know it seems weird, but just having the presence of an animal laying on your chest, it's awesome. So, but it was really tough for me. And Sue, like, even to this day, asking for help is really a struggle for me. Like, no matter what I do, I feel like I am the giver. I am the caretaker. I don't need people to help me. But when you go through cancer treatments, it doesn't matter what your background is. You need those people to help you, even if it's just a text to say, hey, I had one lady, actually, I forgot to mention, she went through treatments too. And she would message me. And to this day, I just have such a love for her. And she'd be like, Denise, just checking in, letting you know I think about you. Don't reply. You don't need to. I know you're recovering. Just, I'm thinking of you. Like, things like that just like, I got goosebumps thinking about it. It just made my heart so full, just knowing that if I needed it, they were there. And I know if I needed anything, my friends would be there. And the odd time I would ask, but it's still, even to this day, it's still difficult for me to ask for help. I'll be completely transparent. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I'm now imagining you cuddling with a bearded dragon. I don't know about that one, but hey, it's whatever gets you through.
You know, it is. And I never thought I'd touch a bearded dragon in my life either. And now that little sucker, he'll lay on my chest here, and he'll just hang out and he's just a little buddy. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. If someone's listening right now and they're a caregiver, or maybe they're someone who's just diagnosed, what's something someone did or a general thing that you're like, I wish you hadn't done that?
As much as it's nice to hear you're strong and you got this, when you hear that over and over again, and you are recovering from your surgery or you're going through your radiation and you're having such pain, but you look at me and I look okay, but I can't swallow because it's like swallowing razor blades mixed with hairballs, but you're so strong, you got this. Okay, thank you. But stop saying that, because right now I feel very weak and I feel very vulnerable, and I just need just me. Like, just don't say that. So I feel like sometimes people don't know what to say. Their intentions are good. So good. I have a friend right now who went through treatments. Everything was great, into fitness, follow-up scan. Well, now there's new spot, stage 4. Okay, here we go. Round 2. His thing, don't tell me I got this. Right now, I don't feel like I have anything. Just don't say that. So I don't say that to him. I say, let's go. Day 8 treatment. Let's go. So every day I check in with him now, because I feel like I'm like a cheerleader for this person, because I can relate. So once you can relate to somebody, you have a different standpoint. When you don't relate, you don't know what to say. So of course people are like, yeah, you're strong. You're the strongest person I know. And at the beginning, I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. But then as you're going through it and you're feeling more side effects and you're feeling just crappy, and there's days you take that phone and you just throw it aside because you just don't need it. It's like, okay, thank you. But I just need to walk away and just focus on what I'm doing right now. So I think for me, that was a big thing. I appreciate people telling me I'm the strongest person they know. I got this. But there were days I didn't feel like I had it, and I just had to do what I had to do to get through those days.
You know, it's interesting. We talked about this a little bit, but it is that, you know, people kind of know chemo. They know all, like, this kind of very traditional movie version of what someone looks like. Is it kind of nice sometimes to have that more anonymity, or is it hard because you think, oh, I don't want to explain this yet again?
10 of one, 2 of the other. I think you're right. Because, like, typically, what do you picture when you think of a cancer client? You think no hair, wearing the little head wraps or wigs or whatever. You think somebody that doesn't go out, they're just sitting in their house. Like, you don't think that. I think that in a way it's, people almost downplay it. Like when you look at me, they're like, oh, well, look at you. You still got all your hair and you're going to the gym and stuff. And that's great or whatever. And you're like, yeah, I feel like death inside, but I'm still doing it. So woohoo. I would it be better if I would have lost all my hair, or if I would have shaved my head off and done that? Well, yes and no. Because then you have people that feel almost sorry for you because, well, now look what you're going through. I think my biggest thing with raising awareness for anyone going through cancer is the fact that no matter what your treatment is, no matter if you only had surgery, no matter if you only had radiation, no matter if you only had chemotherapy, the fact of the matter is you have cancer and you have to deal with how you're going to cure yourself or how you're going to live with this diagnosis. So the biggest thing is that, yeah, what you see looks good. I think I almost got tired because there was like, you look so good. And inside you feel like that emoji of like just death. And you're like, yeah, I feel great. Not. And I'm not the type of person to burden somebody. So if I don't feel good, and my partner's gotten very well, he knows when I'm not telling him 100% the truth. Like, he'll ask me, how are you feeling? And he already knows by my response if I'm actually trying to cover up how I really feel. That's how close we've gotten, especially these last couple of years. So he's probably the biggest person that I can open up and be like, no, I really don't feel good right now. I can't be strong right now. I need to be weak and I just need to be vulnerable. And he's okay with that. everyone else, it's like, yeah, I got this. I don't know. I feel like I almost want to just empower other people that, hey, if you got this, don't think that it's the end of the road. There's still a lot of jam in there. You can keep going.
And let's hear from Michael Suba.
My name is Michael Suba. I'm president of Continental Hair. We have 3 salons in Southern Ontario. I'm also a cancer survivor.
Let's go back to January 1990. You had 3 pretty big things happen in 1 week.
Ouch. Yeah. January 1990. That was the week that my girlfriend dumped me. My father fired me. And my doctor told me that I had cancer. All in the same 5 days. It was quite the week. I don't think it's anything I'll ever forget.
No, and not to, put necessarily an age, but roughly how old were you at the time?
I was 25. And it's odd because when I look back on it was the best thing that ever happened to me. They do say that troubles come not as solitary spies, but in legions. But I was living my life like many 25-year-olds, like I was in a beer commercial, and this sort of got me squared away. We're not just the product of good things that happen to us; we're the product of bad things that happen to us as well. The symptoms that I had were horrible itching in my extremities. My hands and feet, and an incredible cough. I did smoke back then, so I just thought it was a hacker's cough, smoker's hack. And it got worse and worse, and my doctor kept on trying to get me to get a chest x-ray. Finally, I did get one, and it was just at a clinic nearby, and there wasn't someone there to read it when I went to pick it up. But the technician there wouldn't give it to me until it was read. And I said, I'm just going to the hospital now, so I'll bring it with me. He said, you're going to the hospital now, right? And I said, yeah, I'm going to the hospital. You're going now, right? He said, yes, I'm going. Just give it to me. I went to the hospital, went up to Sunnybrook. I went into the waiting room, the massive waiting room with 70, 80 people in it. And I handed this thing in. And I went to go sit down and read a magazine. And about 10 minutes later, in front of all these other people, a doctor came out and said, Michael Suba. And everybody looked at me as I got up because they'd seen that I'd only been there for a couple minutes. And she said, come with me, please. And we start going through this labyrinth and everything. She's not saying anything, but we go eventually through a couple of doors, and I look up top and it says oncology. And that's kind of the way I was introduced to it.
Just going back to when you were diagnosed, a lot of times, we've been talking to some women who've been diagnosed with cancer, and body image comes up as a big thing for women. As a male perspective, it's not something we've really heard. What were some of those almost psychological impacts in terms of changes during treatment?
Well, oddly enough, I didn't have a lot of outwardly obvious indications. I didn't lose my hair. Actually, I still had more hair than a lot of my buddies at the end of treatment. Hair loss for men is something that is not supposed to happen, but it's not irregular that it happens. And of course, with men and women, hair is a big part of the image that we project. But with women, it is much more important. There wasn't any internet back then. All we had was pamphlets. I get this pamphlet and everything, and I read that there's a 50% chance of me becoming sterile from the chemo. And I was absolutely shocked because I'd always taken for granted that I'd like to have children and that I'd want to have a family. And no one told me about this. I was very upset. And when the oncologist came by, so he had all these university med students that were basically my age in a trail behind him coming to see me. And I let him have it about this. And he just looked at me with a stone face. And then when I was finished, he just said, my job is to save your life. What you do with it is your business. And that was it. They've got a lot of people to see. They've got a lot of lives in their hands.
What was your support group, whether formal or informal, when you were going through treatment?
My parents were in total denial. They were just so scared of it and everything. It took them a long time to figure out that, yes, I did have cancer and I was going through chemo. But it was my buddies and my girlfriend And it was, and I don't know, I can only speak to my experience. My guys basically supported me by giving me distractions. One thing I didn't want to do was dwell on it. I would have my chemo every second Friday. And in between it, I really just didn't want to deal with it. So, we'd go to the cottage, we'd go to the pub, we'd do this, we'd hang out and play hearts and stuff. And we really wouldn't talk about it because it was just, there wasn't anything to talk about. There was, that was that. I guess it's an individual thing. And it's, I just have to say that I was very fortunate to have a group of people around me that instinctively knew what was best for me, which is great.
Talk us through those 20 years. You hear a lot about scanxiety. You hear a lot about the different stressors people face kind of at that 1 year mark, 2 year mark, as all of these tests come up. How did that play out from your done treatment to now?
It's the early years are very traumatic. I mean, it's an experience that you don't peel off like a sock. It's something that stays with you because your body betrayed you. Your body tried to take you out. So you don't trust it anymore. So when I would get a symptom, like if I had an itch on the palm of my hand that wouldn't go away immediately, I'd run into the hospital and demand a gallium scan. I mean, it was just like that. It's come back. It got to the point where one time I went into my oncologist's office. She did something that really did help. It didn't feel like it helped at the moment, but she just rolled her eyes and said, "What is it now, Michael?" And I laugh about it now, but that it's just okay. All right, you're being a nervous Nelly. This is not this isn't healthy. You're going to have to get over it. But it wears off, of course. You get very nervous when your appointment comes up for them to take an X-ray and feel your nose and weigh you and everything. So it's always but as the time goes on, you sort of it's reassuring them instead of being a cause for anxiety. It's a cause for reassurance. So at the end of 20 years, when they tell you that, okay, Mike, we don't need to see you anymore. It's sort of, oh, really? I was getting used to this. I like being told every year I'm okay. Yeah. It's fine. I'm always asked, you must live your life like every day is your last, or, no. I'm here for the long haul. I'm looking at the horizon. I'm not just looking at the bow. So it really straightened me out. Oddly enough, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it turned out the way it did. I'm glad it happened.
3 powerful stories from 3 different perspectives. Thank you to Michael, Denise, and Michelle for being so open. In our next episode, Audrey Guth, founder of Nankind, shares how her personal experience led her to fill a key need: supporting moms with cancer and their kids. Please share the Facing Cancer Together podcast with anyone in your life facing a cancer diagnosis or caring for someone who is. And if you're interested in learning more about Look Good, Feel Better and our workshops, visit us at lgfb.ca.
This is Story Studio Network.